Hi and welcome to the Silverstone Museum channel. Today we've got something extra special, this BRM P160 Formula One car. The reason I love it so much is it's got centrepiece here at the museum because it really shows off what 1970s Formula One cars really look like, and wow, weren't they bonkers. Now this one's pretty special. BRM were the World Championship team back in 1962. By the time we got to the early 1970s, this car was a 1972-73 championship car. They'd lost kind of their heyday, but this was their kind of last swan song of them really having an impact on Formula One. And we're going to get the camera down to have a look at some of the design features and some of the aspects of this car. And the first thing that we notice is we've got this big front wing. We're in the early days of developing our aero here. Big front wing that actually houses a radiator underneath. And if Jess gets camera in between the wheel and the front wing, you've also got the way in which the brake duct goes in between the wheel and the front wing. So we're bringing the air into the brakes to get the cooling. You've got the adjustable suspension in there. And another thing that while we're down this end of the car, we're going to notice, the eagle-eyed amongst you will have noticed this is a Marlboro liveried car. This was the first car that the cigarette firm Marlboro actually sponsored. They then went on famously to sponsor McLaren for many years. But what we notice with this very original car is the hand-painted Marlboro logos. And if you can see, as I run my finger over, you can see my fingers going up and down over the bumps. And you look at the lovely logo here, you've actually got hand painted on there, and that's something we certainly don't see in the wraps on modern Formula One cars. If we have a look inside this car, we'll see safety is developing a little bit, but it's still nowhere near the levels of the carbon fibre Kevlar fuel cells and halo that we have today. We've got the fuel cells the driver sits between. We've got a fire extinguisher there. Very, very simple steering wheel, manual gearbox, pretty sparse, giving the driver a limited amount of control of everything that's going on. But I mentioned this would have been epic to drive. And the one thing we can't go away from noticing is this name on the side here, Niki Lauda. Now, Niki Lauda very famously bought a lot of cash to get himself into Formula One. And this car, the P160, was the car that he scored his first ever World Championship points in. This actual one Niki Lauda drove. It was also driven by Helmut Marko, Red Bull, and it was driven by the Le Mans legend Henri Pescarolo. As we move the camera a little bit further down, we'll see other features. This huge V12 engine. BRM were like Ferrari at the time. They were developing and always ran their own engines. Now, this engine was not necessarily always the most competitive. It was certainly powerful, but it was a bit heavier than the Ford DFVs that were used by many of the teams at the time. The other thing you notice with this engine is this huge, and this was a real 1970s thing, these huge oversized air intake. And I like the way Jess is moving back to get the whole scope of the size of this airbox in. Some of the P160s you'll see the photos of have got a little bit lower airbox to them, but this one, nice big airbox to pull air down into the engine. As we move the camera down here, a couple of other features that we potentially don't always see or get up close to. You've got these the air intakes here, the cooling ducts for the brakes, which are inbound. They're either side of the differential and the gearbox housing just in here. We've got the exhaust that are coming out quite high just here, out from the engine. You've got six V12 engine. You've got 6 pipes going all the way through down into one here. You've got all of the engine and gearbox mount here with this huge, great rear wing that sits here. And it's not quite as refined and as stylish as the current F1 rear wings, and it's certainly not carbon fibre. This one's aluminium, but wow, doesn't it look great. And when you stand at the back of this car, and we'll just get Jess to bring the camera down, this is one of those views. And I remember watching certain films and footage when they used to mount cameras at the back of these cars, and doesn't it look great? I must say, getting up close and standing with these cars is a real treat. And at the Silverstone Museum, you get a chance to stand up close and have a good look round these epic Formula One cars.